to start, by asking you to describe a little bit what you do. Let's start with you, Sid.
Sure. So AI Foundry is part of Kodak Alaris, and we pick up where Kodak Alaris leaves off. They sell about half the scanners used by the large enterprise. Those turn paper into images. Our software transforms those images into structured data so that humans don't have to stare and compare, type in, retype all the data, which is actually state-of-the-art in financial services. So it includes classification engine based on deep learning. It includes extraction capabilities, sort of a next generation of OCR using core Kodak Alaris capabilities and IP. And then what you do with it after that, well, that's where the fun starts, right? If you think about doing a mortgage or a loan, you have to provide a lot of documents. It can be painful. You don't know if the bank is finished with them or not. And of course, the cost of processing those documents is very high. And the experience, which is maybe the most important thing, is just terrible, right? You're emailing documents. You have no idea. They go into the ether, basically. It feels like a concierge until you want to know if you're finished. So our software injects it directly into the loan origination system and provides analytics and dashboards and reports all around it. And it, by the way, uses humans when it can't figure out something, like there's a coffee ring on a document or there's a piece missing or the document's folded. So it brings humans into the loop. I love, it's all about the augmented combination of the technology with the human to provide a perfect automation.
Thank you. Richard.
Sir.
I understand you have some slides to show.
I do, if we want to use audio visuals. How does that work?
There it is.
That's me.
Yep, that's you.
All right. Okay, yeah, there are some slides. All right, so yeah, I kind of just lobbed these over about 30 minutes before we came up here, just as a reaction to some of the great discussions that we've had here today. So hopefully they'll make sense. But as you pointed out, the DNA of my team and my co-founder, David Smith, has been in computer gaming. And hopefully that makes sense to you that I'm up here talking about AI, because how many of you have played computer games before? All right, so we got a good friendly audience here. It all started, David actually created a game in 1987 called The Colony. Anybody play The Colony? I think they've all died off by now. But that was the #1 game on the PC, the Mac, and the Amiga in 1987, and it was amazing because it was an interactive 3D game. And as you pointed out, we did game companies with Clancy, with Michael Crichton, with science fiction writer Douglas Adams. I found Stephanie actually played Starship Titanic that we did a long time ago, and Ozzy Osbourne, of course. And of those four, who's still alive?
Ozzy.
It's Ozzy. So the story, I mean, the lesson from that is, I don't know what the lesson is, but anyway. So, and then I worked in aerospace, and while I was there at Lockheed, we got to play with a lot of different toys. However you feel about Lockheed and the mission that it has, lots of really interesting things in space and energy and that sort of thing. And we discovered machine learning. So if I have time, I was going to tell just a quick story. I had a video for you, and it was called The Factory of the Future. It's when I go to high schools and places like that. And it has like AR and VR and AI, and this is a thing that we use with Lockheed when we'd go around trying to get people into STEM and trying to convince the next generation of AI developers and that sort of thing. But I won't show that because I want to tell this quick story. But I'll give you the punchline of the video. The video is an avatar of me, my 3D avatar, stumbling around in this factory of the future. It's got AR, VR, all that stuff. And there's one person in there, one human being, and there's a dog. The human is there to feed the dog, and the dog is there to bite the human if he ever touches any of the automation, right? So that's this world that we're getting into where you automate everything you can. This is a quick little Gartner hypes chart that shows you, so everybody's seen this before? So it's the sort of like excitement wave, and then the trough of disillusionment, and then finally it becomes this technology hopefully we can all use. This is where they think AR and VR and AI all are. They think virtual reality is already out there. And I've seen this wave come and go 3 times. So I was going to VR conferences here in New York back in the early 90s. But I believe that the AI stuff, especially machine learning, and I called Gartner on this and I said, I think you need to move that all the way down that slide and up the other side, because we're doing stuff today where we're solving big problems. And I've heard that a lot from all the Globant people I've been talking about is, these technologies are all great, but what kind of problems are you actually solving? And what we're seeing, and the reason I jumped out of Lockheed and left my ridiculously overpaid job there was that we were using machine learning to have effects like not, twice as effective or 10x, but 600x. So, when I heard Daniel Pinto talking about how do I get the ROI from my investment in technologies? Like, if I told you that today you could go downstairs and get a 600x return on your money, would you do it? These chairs would be empty, right? So that's what we're playing with now. This is an article I wrote in TechCrunch a couple of years ago. Is that in Italian still? Oh, the top you see in English. But I think that's the key thing we've been talking about all day. The issue of the century is how do you get the right balance between humans and machines to optimize the outcome? And that's how I distill all of this stuff down. Whatever technology you're using, if you're not trying to figure that out, then you're going to be at a disadvantage. And this is the real thing I wanted to show you instead of my video. So can anybody guess what this is? First of all, think back to where you were around 2009. Everybody go back in your head. I'm learning from the guy in the blue suit I was talking to out there. Think about 2009 and think about where we are right now. So what you're looking at there is all the trading indexes in the United States at least. And those at the bottom, that's bot activity. And hopefully you can see over here, that's 2008, right? So not much activity there. But even then, some of us were looking at this and saying, hey, guys, you need to pay attention to what's happening here. Those aren't people doing these transactions. These are bots. That's high-frequency trading algorithms. And everyone looked at it and said, it's not that much. It's not, let's not pay attention to that yet. But now we're getting into 2009. You're starting to look at the activity, right? Starting to have a little bit more activity. And this goes, I won't run it all the way, but I think it runs to about 2011. And here's where it gets interesting, because some of us are going out trying to, into the wilderness, preaching about machine learning and AI and trying to tell our customers that you need to pay attention to this now. This isn't the future. I'm not here with a Jetsons shirt on or anything. I spoke at a conference recently and they gave me a Jetson shirt and I was like, no, I'm not a futurist, I'm a nowist. This is happening right now. But this is where it got interesting. On September 15, 2011, we caught the bots cheating. They were trading with each other in the future. So get your head around that. They've time traveled to do transactions with each other. So, and it took, someone earlier today was talking about, how, I think it was Ritesh, right? Is Ritesh still here? Was talking about how policy trails technology by, I think you said 5 years. I think on the government side, certainly SEC in this case, was 10 years behind. It wasn't until Michael Lewis wrote his book a couple of years ago that finally said, hey, we need regulations. We need to get on top of this. But when I first saw this, I fired my financial planner. I said, you can't help me anymore, right? You're just a human. And by my reckoning, you haven't had an upgrade since, what is it, the Pleistocene, maybe? Check my math on that. But we haven't had an upgrade in a long time. It's not enough even to have a really good set of algorithms on an amazingly fast machine anymore. That machine and those great algorithms, they can't be on the Upper West Side. They can't be in Yonkers. They got to be on Broad Street right here, as close as possible physically to where the trading's actually happening, because this is the world we're entering right now, right? It's at the speed of light. And I'll do this one more thing, and then I'll tell you the two things that we're focused on at Tanjo. So here's another thing in 2009. I call 2009 my Zelig year. Does that make sense here in New York? Everybody know what Zelig is? Woody Allen? Nobody? All right, how about Forrest Gump? All right, 2009 was my Forrest Gump year, right, where I just happened to be in all these amazing places where these seismic shifts were happening. I was on the set of Avatar that year. I was here for Ray Kurzweil launched his documentary Transcendence just down the street, talking about all this AI stuff. And then this one right here. So this is Microsoft Research. How many of you have a Microsoft Xbox or Kinect, or your kids have it maybe, right? So we were called to come out there and look at the sensors that they were using in this new gestural interface system. And so I went out there to look at that with David. And the other guy there, by the way, is Jaron Lanier, who's the guy who came up with the term virtual reality a long time ago. But what I ended up getting excited about is this is when I first got religion on machine learning, because they had a huge problem. They'd already shipped these Xboxes all over the world. They had about 100 megabytes of available space on there, and they were trying to teach the system what a living room was. Now that sounds really simple to us. Like I know what a living room is. I know the difference between a chair and a table and a plant and a person and a cat and a dog. But the machine at that time was having a hard time with that because we were still doing AI the old way, right? Which is we would never ask a computer to do anything until we humans understood it completely. And then we sit there and we program in the finite state machine, behavior tree, decision tree, whatever it is, in that code, and we tell the computer how to process it. And that was the old AI. And I say, and I'm just arbitrarily doing this unless it catches on, I'm saying 2009 is the year that it shifted, that we moved from that to machine learning, where we don't even need to understand the problem anymore. What we need is large data sets. So this is why we have autonomous vehicles today, right? In 2004, when DARPA had their big challenge for autonomous vehicles, huge failure, right, if you remember that. Those vehicles lurched across the desert, maybe went a couple hundred yards, hit a rock, lost the GPS signal. It's because we were still doing AI the old, brittle way. The new way and the breakthrough was, let's not try to make it drive the way humans drive, because humans drive with 2 hands, 2 feet, we got eyes, we got pedals and a steering wheel. Machines drive a completely different way, right? They've got LiDAR, they've got radar, they've got optic sensors, they've got GPS. They're fusing all that together. And so that shift to say, let's just give it every possible example, let the machine infer its own rule sets and figured it out. That's how they taught the system to understand what a living room was. And that's how we've solved the problem with autonomous vehicles. And today, a brand new machine learning system, you can just give it 100 hours of video and it can go right out on the street and drive. And I was in Italy recently, I said, everywhere but Rome. It can do it anywhere on the planet except Rome. Never going to happen there, from what I've seen. So this is just another quick thing. So the DeepMind system was able to just watch. That's me with Nolan Bushnell, the guy who founded Atari, also founded Chuck E. Cheese, by the way, because he needed a place to put his Pac-Man games. Remember that? But anyway, so they just let DeepMind watch humans play, and it was able to learn how to play Atari games. That's pretty simple. And then this was the big thing in 2016, right, that everybody saw, where we thought, it's one thing for a machine to win at chess against a human, but Go is this incredibly complex thing with as many possible positions as there are, atoms in the universe, whatever that says.
Okay.
And by the way, just yesterday I saw that the new AlphaGo system is actually taught itself, like by playing itself to win. So I'll just jump to the punchline here. It's this. So in that first way, before 2009, you have to be a programmer. In the second way, where we are right now, the big thing today is we want data scientists. Like I'm scrambling out there trying to find enough data scientists because I need to massage that data, get those examples in a place so the machine can learn. The machine already knows how to learn. I don't really have to program that much anymore. I need good interfaces like what Globant does. And then the third wave of it, we're going to enter here pretty soon, and that's where it's about how do I create systems that are provably aligned with human values and can actually grow from there. So that's where we are at Tanjo, is trying to build those systems.
Pierre, thank you for coming such a long distance. I've been an admirer of your work, and I believe that people would like to see what you are up to.
Right. So hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. I'm co-founder of IVA. IVA is an artificial intelligence that composes music for soundtracks of films, video games, TV shows, commercials. So I started this about a year and a half ago with a few friends, and our ambition is to obviously create really good music with AI, which obviously is almost like I'm talking about two different things, right? Because we've been taught that only humans can create good music. So that was kind of the first challenge. Second challenge was actually to create music for use cases where humans cannot compete. For example, if you want to create music for video games nowadays, you're limited to only creating 2 hours of music when there's 100 hours of gameplay in a video game. So AI can really help in that regards. And that's what we're really passionate about in my company, about solving those use cases where human composers just cannot, fulfill all that music. So that's not me.
Sorry.
Do we have the the video. Okay, so, sorry.
Can we have some volume on the video?
Okay, there's sound?
Yes.
So this is a video of music we did for our client NVIDIA.
I'm a visionary,
Well,
exploring a universe of data to sharpen our view of the most distant galaxies. And studying black holes to help prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. I am a healer, giving doctors the power to turn mountains of data into life-saving breakthroughs. Identifying diseases like leukemia from a simple drop of blood, even in our own homes, and finding new ways to bring cures to market faster. I am a protector, keeping our oceans safe from invasive species, and helping our crops flourish while minimizing pesticides. I am a helper, assisting customers in stores and the disabled in their homes. I am a navigator, mapping our world 1 millimeter at a time, and making even the largest self-driving vehicles safer for the long haul. I am a creator, learning to paint from the masters and applying their styles to create original works of art. I am a teacher, analyzing 500,000 player moves every game to identify strengths and weaknesses. And a learner, discovering new strategies from complex games. I am even the composer of the music you're hearing. I am AI, brought to life by NVIDIA, deep learning, and brilliant minds everywhere.
GPUs, baby.
yeah.
You left me speechless.
So, I mean, I just want to mention, the really interesting part about doing this is actually working with humans, and at the end you could see human musicians. So we're really excited about augmenting humans' capabilities when it comes to creating stuff, creating good music for soundtracks. So yeah, that's pretty much what our company is about.
Fantastic. Well, I guess it's this presents in some way a very wide variety of what we can expect from AI. Actually, this video is extremely descriptive of that. But in any case, we will need for people to understand what AI can bring, and it's our responsibility as entrepreneurs to actually be the ones who can simplify the life of our consumers. So, Sid, what are the keys on making people buy into your product?
Well, in many cases, it's about integration with the workflow, right? So they don't want some AI thing that's going to do something different that they don't understand that would be disruptive. So I'll often make the joke, right? Maybe we have lightning in a bottle, and the client will, or sometimes clients or technology firms will say, not technology firms, but the IT groups will say, I don't have a bottle-shaped interface for that. So even that could be transformative. I don't want to put it into my environment because I don't want to disrupt that. So very often you have to really provide a complete solution, right? So it's not just the AI piece, but yeah, we'll integrate it for you, we'll tune it, we'll get it started. It's a lot about justifying, but maybe the most important thing is the data, right? In order to really make these things work, and especially machine learning, you have to watch out for the cold start problem. You have to, you can make all kinds of assumptions about what an AI engine could do for the business, but if it doesn't have the right inputs, if those inputs haven't been collected, there's no way to get there. So those are kind of the three things I look for, right?
So it's essentially, the idea is to still provide a solution that leverage on AI rather than going and selling AI?
Well, that's right. I mean, look, just yesterday, there was another update of the AI market landscape. I think it's 1,500 companies. And if you look at the big data landscape, there are several good ones out there, 4,000 to 5,000 companies spread across 100 categories. How can there possibly be so many specific problems, specific, different takes on development tools for AI or AI tool sets or learning engines? It just can't be the case. And I think, look, there's numerous examples going back to the Google paper, right, that shows that a carefully tweaked algorithm is nowhere near as good as the naive implementation with 100x or 1,000x the data. It's the data that makes so much of the difference.
Mm-hmm. Richard, you haven't talked a lot about the personas, the automated personas that Andrew is trying to create. Tell us a little bit about
Sure. So, like I said, when we left Lockheed and started this company, the first thing we did is, and we'd played with it a little bit at Lockheed, is we created our own brain. So we called it, we gave birth to this system. And the first thing we said is, let's teach it all human knowledge. Way too ambitious, as it turns out. But so we looked at the Dewey Decimal System, right, and said, hey, there's already a category system for knowledge. We created that category system, and then we released this thing onto the net. And every time it encountered content, it would try to categorize it with those 1,400 things, right? So it was doing that at first. And it ended up expanding its brain to 4,000 of these sort of high-end categories. And of course, underneath it's all the sort of subcategories of knowledge. So we did a newsreader first because Google had just gotten out of the newsreader business. And we thought, hey, that's a great opportunity. Went after millennials, put it out there to university students. And the goal was, let's create a super brain that knows all human knowledge and solves the semantic web problem. I think we thought too much of ourselves. Because, of course, our users, because they were of that age, they started skewing the entire brain towards pop culture instead of what we wanted them to do. So the brain ended up caring a whole lot about the Kardashians and what Kanye West was doing and that sort of thing. So we stopped that experiment pretty quickly. The next thing we did, and this is where the personas came from, is we looked at dating apps. Because it turns out that the way the machine learning brain looks or works, it can look at any bit of content, a video, or read some text, and then it tries to map it into its understanding of what it's about. But it doesn't differentiate between a person or a piece of content. So all we are to the machine is a set of interest graphs and maybe some psychographs and some sentiment indices, right? And that's that's how it categorizes us. So we said, let's do an experiment. We created a bunch of our little bots with interest graphs, with psychographs, and released them onto OkCupid. And whenever you want, no, you won't admit it if you were. Anyway, went out and found about 3.5 million OkCupid profiles and brought it back, and it had basically categorized them all with Myers-Briggs models of everybody. And so now we thought, well, the only thing we have to do now is what's that algorithm for what kind of interest graph and personality maps? Because you can't just do interest graphs. We all know that, right? You have to have the other pieces. So when we did that, we thought, okay, we're really good now. We can make really good models of actual people. What do we do with that? Who cares about that? And we did some early experiments. The first thing we did is we brought Victor Hugo back to life. And normally I have a nice little slide and everything about that. But think about it. Victor Hugo is someone who, nobody's rights managing him anymore, I don't think. I hope not. And we had our system just go out there and read everything Victor Hugo ever wrote, everything written about him, which turns out to be a lot, and then build up that model of Victor Hugo. So the day he was born, we released Victor Hugo on the net. And then we could sit there, in fact, any day I want, I can go visit Victor Hugo and see, what's he care about today? What's he attracted to? And it turns out we learned a lot, he's more of a poet than a novelist. Really didn't like Napoleon Bonaparte. Doesn't like some of our leadership today, apparently, a lot. And so we could see he scores everything he reads. So we're watching him to begin with. The next cool thing is you can submit stuff to him. So I can write something up, give it to him, and Victor Hugo will tell me if he likes it or not. So with a local New York literary magazine, we built a whole bunch of these. So we have Dostoevsky, and we have Victor Hugo, and Leonardo da Vinci, and Mark Twain, and whoever, a whole bunch of them. And now as they get submissions for their magazine, they can let these sort of virtual editors actually read this first and then score it before it actually goes to actual human editors.
Nice.
And the other piece of it, just so I'll finish this off, is there's billions of dollars that are spent in this country alone on trying to understand what humans want in consumer goods, right? But forget about even trying to convince you to buy something you maybe don't want, but just trying to divine what it is you care about. So they do focus groups and e-panels and all this sort of thing. And from our background in aerospace and the other things we've done, we said, God, when we were working in Afghanistan, we didn't do like, here's a model of a Sunni person and a Shia and a Kurd and whatever. There were millions of these entities that lived in a simulation and were constantly practicing, like, what if we build a school here? What if you do a road here? What are the things that might happen? And when I looked at, how many of you do like customer segmentation models? How many have heard of that? So when we came out and started working with a customer, we saw people that were spending millions of dollars on these customer segmentation models, and they would end up with like these high aggregate sort of things like iPhone mom and Joey Gearhead and tech nerd and whatever. And they get this information after millions of dollars in pieces of paper. And I asked, like, what do you do with that? I said, well, we put it in this folder right here. And anytime we have a new campaign and want to create a new product, we pull that piece of paper out and we look at it as we design. I'm like, what if I animated that person? Mm-hmm. And then let you actually run sims on your new product ideas. But instead of aggregates, how about let me do that for every household in the United States?
Okay.
So that's where we're headed with that.
Pierre, I'm in a way you not only in some way somewhat similar to what Richard has been doing. You brought back Mozart, Bach, Beethoven to life, and you just did it at the age of 21. Wow. You mentioned that you started your company 1.5 years ago. So I would like to understand the personal, the personal aspects of how did you get to do that? What are the personal traits that you need to have to actually harness the power of AI at such a young age?
Right. Well, I think it started at a very young age when, I was always passionate about music. So when I was about 6 years old, I would write short stories and then like try to also play music that reflected those stories. But early on, I actually started not liking music because all these rules were imposed to me. I had to learn about music theory, and I just hated that. So eventually, I stopped music, and I got more involved in mathematics. But eventually, I went back into music because I started understanding that I can take a piece of music that I heard somewhere, and I can improvise on it, and then I can build on it. So then once I went to university, I studied computer science, and I started thinking, once I got a little bit thinking about AI, I started thinking, what if I just don't care about the rules? I delegate that to an AI. Let the AI think of the rules. Let the AI think of the boring stuff. Come up with some ideas, and then I take those ideas and I improve them. I arrange them so that I can make this idea mine by just fulfilling my creative needs, my cravings, without having to do the boring stuff. And that's, thinking about that, I told myself, well, there's probably some really cool stuff we can do by applying AI to music. And using AI, we can really make sure that the artists out there, they focus really on the creative side of creation. Because if you're a movie composer, it's not as glamorous as what people think. You have a client who's a movie director and might have very specific needs for his or her music. And maybe you don't actually like the music you're supposed to compose, but you have to do it. It's your job. So here you can have an AI actually helping you with the tedious stuff, and you focus on the more creative part.
And how much of that is still left to humans? We all like to believe today, and Martin talked about that. This AI will free time for us to do the cooler part. And actually what Sid is saying is, okay, I'm doing AI, so you don't need to start to continue doing boring stuff and you focus on this. But it looks to me that you are pushing us into a corner, like, okay, what's left for us when it comes to creativity? Is essentially creativity a safe place where we can actually protect ourselves, or how do you see that?
Right. So first of all, I think I would say that AI can teach us a lot. And the example of AlphaGo was brought up. So this AI that can actually play Go. And one of the really, really interesting thing that happened during one of the games against the world champion is that an AI did a really unpredictable move. And all the experts at Go just look at this move, and then they were like, "What happened? Why did this AI do that? Was it just a bug in the software?" And it turned out at the end of the game, this particular move allowed the AI to win, to win the advantage. And then experts went over the game and studied the reason behind that move, and it went against all the logic that has been built by humans over the years, over thousands of years, and it got them thinking, what if we try such moves, such crazy moves? And I remember a match after this particular match I just talked about, Lee Sedol, so the world champion at Go, actually managed to win against the AI by doing another crazy move. So it's almost like AI taught him to go out of his comfort zone. Because we humans, we talked about risk earlier. We humans, once we get really comfortable in an area, we tend not to leave it. And it's the same when it comes to creativity. If I'm really good at composing a particular style, I'm not prone to going out there trying new things. And that's what AI, I think, is going to...
It looks like AI is even more fearless than what we are. And that we are becoming risk averse. And as Linda said earlier, crazy should be a compliment.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and I also think that AI can create a lot of different music. It can compose thousands of music within a few hours. But at the end of the day, you still need humans to select that music, to pinpoint which music is going to fit a particular movie or a particular game. And for that reason, I think there's still going to be some human involvement. When I listen to the music created by the AI is biased because I'm here selecting what's going to be given to the client. So there's still some human interaction, and we're working really hard to make sure that the human aspect doesn't go away, because we're not. If we replace ourselves, it doesn't benefit us in any ways. So that's really not the point. And also we work with musicians, so real people, to actually record this music.
Yeah.
And that's what we're really excited about.
Sid, talking about risk aversion, you are coming from a subsidiary of Kodak, coming from the ashes of what Kodak, that has been like an example of all the potential that can be lost by not being able to adapt in record time. What lessons do you think you are adopting to actually avoid the same story happening again?
Well, there's a great case study about Kodak and many other companies that ultimately missed the shift or failed to execute, right, as the shifts occurred. Everybody here has a device with multiple cameras on it. Those kinds of things were in the heads of people at Kodak and Polaroid and many others years and years ago, but they were, became very trapped in the existing business model. And I think maybe that's the important thing, right, is that wild go move. AI sets up the possibility that you might find really new ways to connect or new ways to process, change the back-end process. And it can be hard to think that way. So partly it's about thinking differently, right? That you can imagine these mad moves as being game changers that you could honestly attempt. And you might never be able to attempt it with people and rolling chairs and traditional processes, right? You need something that just says, much as your example of not trying to teach a computer to drive the way a human does, right? If it can consider all of the blended data sources, just as an example, and doesn't need to go through all of the steps that we imagine a human would go through, that doesn't mean we have to cripple it with that process. So I think there'll be a pretty incredible shift, but today, I think it's the combination that's powerful.
Yeah.
And will remain that way for a while.
Richard, today we talk a lot about data and the fact that only a handful of companies have been able to see themselves as as data-driven companies. So banks have had all our data for ages, but we're always extremely transactional. While Amazon or Google, are like companies that they are very hard to describe what they are. So would it take, what's the potential of an avatar like the ones you are building, to describe a persona, to actually be the vehicle to use that, for us to present that data to every company we deal with, to every brand we deal with? And what's the potential of some of those companies to actually help me create a mixed persona? For example, I'm a disaster with managing my numbers, my finance. So perhaps I could have like a persona that is a mix, the perfect mix of my taste with the financial acumen of a JP Morgan. Would that be possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really fundamental question. When the graphical internet was born, Doc Searle wrote this thing called the Clue Train Manifestos. Everybody remember that? You guys read that? And it was about the whole thing. The internet is supposed to empower all of us individually, and markets are supposed to become conversations, and the tide was going to turn in terms of the power shift. It's not CBS and ABC and NBC or a few sort of companies controlling the conversation. But then I looked over the last decade or so, all the money all the sort of billionaires we've created in Silicon Valley have been based on social media. What business are they in? Monetizing human attention, right? So they're doing the same thing that the previous companies did, and now it's even concentrated more, and has been remarked a couple of times today, that's becoming more of an issue. And as we build these personas, obviously there needs to be a business. I would love to build them for all of us individually so that you have an avatar of you, this persona of you that's out there protecting your data on the net, is representing your interests, knows when you're a buyer or when you need to be left alone, and can do that. But what's the business model? We've had a hard time getting people to say, yeah, I'll do that. I want to pay for that. Because Doc Searle said, data is the new oil. We like to say in my office, data is the new Soylent Green.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know what Soylent Green is, but it's, we're letting these companies take the data out of the essence of us, and then they're feeding it back to us.
But maybe I was thinking today.
Is that too dark?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe I was thinking that today, they were talking about how clear now you need to state what was the use of your data. That somebody will, but people actually don't read the tiny print. And on the other hand, if there were a startup there that would pay me for my data, now we are giving our data in exchange of
That's right, a transaction.
Connecting with our friends, whatever. But if at one point there is a startup paying me to have my data, and now I can know that there's value on that, perhaps it could be one of the best ways in which we will all realize the power we have on it, and we'll be more careful.
And there's a fundamental thing there, which is there's a big difference between data and information, and even a bigger leap from information to intelligence, right? And what Google gets and some of these other guys is that information that's been computed and intelligence is the most powerful thing in the universe, and that's where people need to be focused, not on like, oh, look at all the data I have. It's like, even when you've tried to massage it, it's still not helpful until it's been computed.
Okay, so we are living in an era of an enormous amount of content, and you talk about like an extreme personalization of music. The power of, typically any composer will have a few dozen top hits, in the life, and perhaps you, Pierre, with Aiva, can create enormous amount of compositions in a day. Up to what extent do we need such a personalization in contrast with perhaps sharing a Despacito between all of us? We need some Despacito to have like a common social ground, something that will act as the glue that get us united. So how do you see that?
Right. So I think, there used to be a time when no music was recorded. It was only live music. So that was like really social. And then studio recorded music came about. And I think now we're going to have a new type of music, which is AI music. But at the same time, I think if anything, this new type of music is going to bring more value to the live music, to the music that's really social. As you know, if you gather around a campfire with your friends, the value of playing the guitar and then maybe your friends at the drum or something like that is not hearing something that's of the best quality, because maybe you're not the best guitarist in the world, maybe you're not the best singer, but it's just enjoying a good time with your friends. If you really wanted that best audio experience, you would just put on really good headphones and listen to the audio recording of the same song. So I think AI is not going to remove all of that, because it was already about something more than just listening to music. It's about really sharing something. And if we go to concerts, we enjoy concerts not because just of the music, because we might have listened 100 times to the same music before going to the concert, but actually we want to see the performance by the artist. They might dance, they might do crazy things, they might do remixes or arrangements of this particular song. So we really go for the experience and to connect with other people, to have a good time. So I think AI personalization is here to really cover those use cases where humans, they cannot operate. If you go running, your heartbeat starts to go faster. You need something uplifting to fit your run. Then AI can provide the music. Humans cannot necessarily provide that music. On this particular instant. Same thing if you're in a video game. You want to have very immersive music. No composer in the world can compose 100 hours of music for one video game. It's just not possible. So I think AI is working in its own domain. And the point is not to make it in competition against humans. The point is just to let it tackle new problems.
My business card says that I'm a rock star wannabe. I certainly believe that that AI can actually be the only solution for me to be a rock star, actually. So, we are running out of time. I don't know if we have time for a couple of questions.
Somebody got provoked back there.
Thank you, a really fantastic session. I have a question on sort of the Victor Hugo AI. Does that continue learning? So Victor Hugo, maybe a different Victor Hugo in 18 months or some period of time?
I love it, a philosopher. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the questions we had early on, and we did test that. So the Victor Hugo that we created initially, we left that one in a box. And we had the other one which went out and started reading content. And that Victor Hugo has, his interest graph has evolved based on the things that he's been exposed to. And that we found really fascinating, right? And I think that's like McLuhan said a long time ago, the media the things we make us, the media we consume change us. And that's just as true of these machine learning systems, because that's what machine learning is, right? It's adaptive. It's really a self-improving database. So every time it finds a better example of something, it replaces that one or updates its understanding. So that one's very different. There was a period there where Victor got really interested in printers, and we thought something was wrong. He went down a rabbit hole, right? And so everything was up printers. And we're like, this thing's broken. And then and then he finally healed himself. We realized it's not uncommon to see humans do that, right? Go out on the net, just browsing around, and then go into some weird place for a while. But eventually he came back. So it's fascinating to watch that. Some of our marketing customers are, they don't yet know what to make about that. And we're still doing a lot of validation trials. But I mean, that's the thing is, even those segmentation models, those are a point in time, and people are not static. People change with the seasons as we move through life. Our interest graph and our interests change, and these bots are no different.
So maybe the avatar you create is not a selfie of Victor Hugo, but actually a way for him or for all of us to transcend in the future our human nature.
That's possible.
Do we have another question? There.
It's kind of a long question. Maybe we can take offline over a drink or something. But just the idea of intelligence, your idea of kind of data to information to insights to intelligence, it's a spectrum. And we're trying to simulate intelligence by applying rules and data. And I guess I always wonder, as we try to create sentience in human beings, we seem to be a little bit more than that. I don't really know what that is. But I'd be curious at some point, and maybe just a brief touch on it now, and if you can point me to some information. I'm always curious about how we actually get to real intelligence versus the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, that's another philosopher here, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to tackle, or do you want you to?
That's a pretty deep question.
Yeah, so if you go to any of the Kurzweil singularity conferences or listen to Peter Diamandis and these guys, they talk about AI+. And that's why a lot of us, and this just happened yesterday, I copied the thing off about the new AlphaGo, who has transcended itself. The fact that a system that was designed to learn from humans and play humans and beat a human at a game then took it upon, I think they did guide this. It was supervised learning, I believe, but we're still trying to understand. It wasn't clear from the article, but it has now gotten to the point where it can beat the old version of itself. So we're heading towards that future of what they call AI+. And AI+ is the last invention humans will ever make. So when you hear Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking and Bill Gates and everyone talking about that, it's when you have a system that can get to that point where it reaches AI+, then it, at machine speeds, it gets rapidly more intelligent.
We'll never catch it.
And that's, I said earlier was something we have a watchword around is like, how do we build systems that are provably aligned with, a company's mission, its culture, and its values, right, and its goals. And one of the things already we've seen in machine systems, especially with the quantum computer stuff, which I haven't gotten into, but we were there when Lockheed bought the first quantum computer, and you want to talk about alien intelligence. It's hard for us to even understand how to program it, much less understand what it's doing or how it came to its conclusion. And that gets into some weird, sticky philosophical areas, but it is something we have to be on guard for, is that some of these machine intelligences evolve their own goals, which have nothing to do with what we think they should be doing. And that high-frequency trading example is just one of those examples. Like, we didn't put enough rules in place to tell it not to do that.
It might be there's enough intel. There's actually more bandwidth in the brain than we think. My cousin, who's a doctor, always reminds me that I can't really see all of you as clearly as I can. There's two spaces right here where I shouldn't be able to see anything, but my brain doesn't let me perceive that, even though my eye has that limitation. So it might be that future sensors enable the brain to go faster, to reach further, and the combination of whatever you want to call it, AI+, will ultimately be the thing that brings that back into, whatever. If you want to use harmony or to avoid like matrix-like terminology, right? The idea of what is reality and how much can we change it or impact it, and how will we do that together? I think the answer is we can't imagine that, but hopefully together we'll figure it out.
Yeah, Hans Moravec has the best expression of it. He says, it's not AI taking over, it's ourselves in more potent form. Right. And hopefully that's the direction all this will go. With your help. Everybody write that down.